Right then, ladies and gentlemen, I have been saying red hot sizzling Kings of War action, but it's more like frosty, nicely chilled Kings of War action at the moment, because the goblins, while excavating their mountainous home, they've uncovered a cavern which has angered significantly some dwarves who are living in there for thousands of years, and these ramshackle hordes of goblins have just disturbed them. So they've decided, you know what, there's only one way to settle this border dispute. Let's take it down into the valley and fight it out. So, the goblins, I've tweaked the list a little bit from the last couple of games. So, starting at this end, we've got some Fleabag Riders, that's just a troop of them. I've split them up for this game. We've got a Wiz who has Wind Blast, which is far less rude than it sounds. We've got a horde of Spitters, a horde of Trolls, a horde of Sharp Sticks. There's the general there, who is a bigot. Then we've got some more Fleabag Riders. And finally, the Giant at this end, in all his mighty glory. And over on the Dwarf side, what have we got over here?
Well, over here we've got 20 Iron Guard, the regiment hiding behind the trees. We've got...
Very heroic.
Extremely brave. A horde of Shield Breakers.
Look like they've just been down the mines and haven't quite had time to clean themselves off.
Yes, they're all clad in black soot. We've got a small troop hiding behind a wall of Ironwatch crossbows. And behind them is the general, to try and inspire them with a bit of his bravery. We've got 20 berserkers, berserkly raised axes. On the hill, looking over everybody, we have an organ gun. And a hidden warsmith behind him.
Right,
and that's it.
We'll see if the orange of the berserker's hair can match the orange of the goblin armour. Okay, Goblin turn 1. Action-packed emotional rollercoaster of excitement. The cavalry and the Wiz have moved up on this flank. The Spitters edged a little bit towards the front of their hill, so they could get a shot off in the first turn. The Trolls, those Fleabags, have moved up into a bit of a defensive position, partially behind that hedge. I'm not sure whether that'll actually help them at all. Then the Sharp Sticks behind them, and the Bigot inspiring all these units in this general area because they're probably going to get shot in a minute. The Giant's taking a bit of a chance. He's run off on his own out there onto the flank with the organ gun staring down the sights at him. Then in the shooting phase, the Spitters utterly failed to score any hits on that big dwarf horde there. So because of that, the wizard thought, you know what, I'm going to have to lend a bit of a hand here. So he blasted them with wind, and they went back 3 inches. So that's not bad. It's a pretty tasty spell. So we'll see how the dwarves can respond to this. I have a feeling it's going to be with firepower. Right, dwarf turn 1. They've advanced. These dwarves are actually in the middle of the woods, but we just shifted the trees out of the way for convenience. They haven't used some magical energy to move the trees, because I'm sure that would be abhorrent to the dwarves. This horde have moved up to try and counteract the effects of the wind that pushed them back a little bit. These berserkers have edged up as well. The crossbows took aim at the Fleabag Riders, did 2 points of damage, and with the roll did manage to waver them on the nerve test. So they're going to be affected by that. And the organ gun, with its vast number of shots, took aim at the Giant, managed to do 3 points of damage, and then rolled a double 6. Oh dear, on the nerve test, so he is also wavered, despite not taking that much damage yet. So, quite a bit of wavering going on. The goblins not really enjoying the look of this. I'm not sure they're going to have the stomach for this fight. We shall see. Goblin turn 2. Not looking quite so packed over on my side of the table anymore. Of course, the Giant and these Fleabag Riders, because they'd been wavered. So we can get rid of those now. They're not wavered anymore. They've had enough wavering about. They just stood there, repositioned themselves a little bit. The Sharp Sticks moved forward, and they would have been in charge range of those berserkers, but the wind blast sent them back a little bit, so they're too far away now. Then we had a nice double charge action going on here, on this horde of dwarves. The Trolls in the front, the Fleabags in the side. They were both hindered though, because they went through the hedge and the woods to get there, so that may have saved the dwarves, even though I did roll well and got 12 points of damage on them, which was very nice. But then couldn't quite break their nerve, which is quite considerable, considering they're dwarves. So they're sticking around, and we'll see what they can do in retaliation next time. The spitters attempted to shoot at these dwarves down here, but couldn't hit the broadside of the barn. Well, the dwarf turned 2, and it was quite eventful. Starting down here, this unit in the trees decided they were just going to turn around on the spot, set themselves up for a charge next turn. And then you may notice that the trolls have disappeared. That's because this huge unit of soot-covered dwarves, fresh from the mines, the smell of coal in their nostrils, countercharged into the trolls, did a ton of damage, and completely obliterated them, despite them being inspired. So the trolls are gone. The shooting, the crossbows and the organ gun targeted this sharp stick horde, did 8 points of damage in total, but couldn't roll enough to waver or wipe them out. So, the goblins have got some tasty opportunities coming up now. Might be able to finish off that horde with a bit of luck. And I think Mr. Giant needs to get into the action now that he's no longer wavered. He really needs to get in there pretty quick, I think. Goblin turn 3, and it swings back again. That huge horde of dwarves that had already taken significant damage. They took a triple charge in the flank from the fleabags, and in the front from the bigot and the sharpsticks horde, which had already taken damage. All three of those combined did another 9 points damage on them, so it would have taken a double 1 for them not to be completely destroyed. Even with inspiring next to them, they couldn't pull it off, so they're gone. So that's one big giant dwarf unit dead. So these units just pivoted to face the oncoming threat there, and the sharpsticks are looking quite menacing towards all those units over there now. Also, the giant moved into this difficult terrain, which he ignores because he's a giant and he's cool like that. So, those guys have got something to worry about. And the shooting, the spitters actually did some damage this turn, I think. They put a few onto the berserkers, and then the whiz cast a lightning bolt on them as well, which did a bit more damage. So, this is getting very interesting now. The combo charges are deadly. So we'll see what the dwarves have got up their sleeves to counteract this. They've still got some pretty tough nuts to crack left, especially these guys. I'm not looking forward to facing them. Finding themselves penned in over here, the dwarf berserkers decided they were just going to stand there and take whatever charges come their way in a minute. All the shooting, the combined might of the organ gun, the crossbows, and the engineer's pistol, which took aim at the giant and these fleabags respectively, they did 0 damage, I think. In fact, they may have done 1 point to the giant and couldn't roll a double 6 to waver him. So that wasn't the shooting phase they needed. However, they did get a bit more fortune in the combat phase because the Iron Guard managed their hindered charge into the fleabags and did enough damage to wipe them out because they don't have a very high nerve, did a few points damage and took them down. So, they're in prime position to launch a counter-offensive now, should anything go wrong for the goblins round here. Goblin turn 4. Let's start with the spitters, because they're always non-stop rollercoaster of action. They fired into the Iron Guard and did nothing. So then the whiz wind blasted them, not far enough though, he only blasted them away a total of 2 inches, I think.
2 inches, yeah.
Then in the middle here, the sharpsticks charged into, is he a king?
He's a king.
The dwarf king, hoping that if they could wipe him out, they would then be able to advance further and avoid getting charged in the rear by them. Unfortunately, they could only do 3 damage points on him and then couldn't get rid of him. So that's unfortunate. However, it did go a little bit more fortunately over here, because the giant and the fleabags double charged the berserkers. They did a few points of damage, and it required a double 6 to completely rout them. I think they got 10 damage on them in total, and they needed a total of 22. And it came up with a double 6. So they've just gone. So the giant and the fleabags have pivoted to face these various units around here. So that could be the deciding point of the game, but these Iron Guard are pretty tasty. I don't even think I've damaged them yet, have I?
No, I don't think so.
Nope, so they're really going to be deciding, I think. Dwarf turn 4, and sensing the imminent threat of the giant and the fleabags, they unleashed all their furious firepower. The crossbows, again, missed everything, so the fleabags lived to fight another day. The organ gun and little pistol man there did some more damage to the giant. He's up to 11, so they only needed to roll 6 to waver him, or an 8 to get rid of him completely, and they got 5. So he is still alive, which could be crucial because that could spell doom for some of these units around here. However, it went a little bit better for the dwarves over on this side, because they got a combo charge in there with the king and the iron guard into the sharp sticks. Did a ton of damage on them, so it would have required a double 1 for them to live. With inspiring, so there were 2 opportunities at it. But no, the goblin sharp sticks have been annihilated. So that's a horde gone. So it's not looking too crowded on the table anymore. Goblins still alive down here. The characters running around in the middle. Those 2 units have taken damage. The dwarf units that are alive are mostly untouched, but they have lost some really big hitters. Okay, so this could be where it all went wrong for the goblins. The fleabags charged into the engineer dude up there, and the giant charged into the crossbows. However, they couldn't do enough damage to do anything. The giant, with all his attacks, only managed to inflict 1 point of damage onto the crossbows and then couldn't rout them. And the same story over here, they didn't do enough to him. The spitters decided to fire and try and take out the king. It was very difficult to damage him though, so they couldn't do anything. And then the whiz thought, you know what, I need to protect the giant's flank, so I'll wind blast the iron guard backwards. Unfortunately, he only got 1 inch of blastiness, so they're not pushed out of charge range, so that could spell doom for the goblins at the moment. We'll see. It would take some very bad rolling for them not to kill the giant, I think, in this turn. The dwarf turn, and the giant paid the price for falling over and completely failing all of his attacks last turn, because he got combo charged, the iron guard, and the crossbowman. They did enough damage to put him up past his threshold already, so it was a double 1 required for him to hang around. And despite 2 attempts, he's dead. So the giant comes thundering to the ground. There's a big crater where he was standing. Over here, the warsmith couldn't do enough to wipe out the fleabags, but he did get them wavering. And then the bigot was sent wavering from the shooting capability of the organ gun. So a lot of wavering going on over there. Just the whiz and the spitters to do anything with, really, and goblin turn 6. We'll see if they can turn the tides on now. I may have 1 or 2 things up my sleeve. And the tricks that I had up my sleeve involved firing the spitters ineffectually into the iron guard again. I think they've maybe done about 1 point of damage at most this entire game, the spitters. The whiz shot a lightning bolt into the crossbowmen, did a point of damage only, trying to make them take a nerve test, but it was passed. So, not looking good for the goblins. Some of these things are probably going to get crushed in dwarf turn 6. At the moment, as everything is on the table, I imagine the dwarves are probably ahead on victory points. So if they manage to kill anything else, that could just drive it completely over the line. Dwarf turn 6. It was quite eventful, actually. First of all the shooting, the crossbows, the organ gun, and the warsmith fired into the fleabags. But despite the massive damage incurred on them, a double 1 was rolled, so they were holding their ground. However, it didn't do them much good, because the iron guard ploughed through the bigot and then went an extra 3 inches into the fleabags and finished them off. Put the finishing touches on them, and there was no inspiring around, so they couldn't get lucky twice. So then we rolled to see if the game ends, and it did. So this is what you got left for the dwarves. They've taken some significant casualties though. If you look at their corpse table down there,
A lot of bodies.
yeah, that phone didn't die, so that's not part of it. 2 big juicy units were killed. The goblins have still got the whiz left, and the spitters, which did absolutely nothing for the whole game, on the hill. At most they did 1 point of damage, I think.
Yeah, I think all game 1 point.
And then all these corpses here. So, the tactical overview. I think possibly the giant was dilly-dallying too much over here instead of ploughing straight into combat alongside the trolls.
He was too busy trying to kill the organ gun, I think.
Yeah, he had his eye on that organ gun right from the start. He was really trying to distract it because he's quite tough and he wanted to get right in there on it, but it slowed him down too much. And the trolls ended up dying because they didn't have enough backup, I think.
Yeah, they got hit with a lot of hits, didn't they, from the shield breakers?
They did. A few things did go well though. They got a nice combo charge in on some of the dwarves.
The berserkers were gone instantly.
Yeah, berserker's just immediately dead. I think Wind Blast can be a good spell. It's situational though, it didn't actually come in useful that much. I think maybe having Bane chance would have been better, so I could give someone some piercing or some crushing strength, which would have been handy, because I was facing a lot of armour, especially when these guys were shooting into the iron guard. So I think maybe that would be a better spell to take next time.
Yeah.
So, the dwarfs win, obviously, because there's not many goblins left. But I think they can take some pride. They took plenty of dwarfs down with them. They went down swinging.
Took 2 good units down.
So, let's get the old left-handed handshake on camera.
Good game.
Yep, and we'll see if the goblins can get some sweet, sweet vengeance next time.